Today I'm cleaning out my Husky 550 XP Mark II. I'm going to start with the side case. Don't forget to disengage the brake. It's a common rookie mistake to pry that side case off with the brake still engaged. Then it's usually a prick to get it disengaged again in order to get the case back on. I'm going to start by getting the majority of the gunk out with my wife's toothbrush there. Careful not to push any debris into the oiler there. Last thing you want to do is get that clogged. And after that, I'm going to take the air tool to it and give it a good blow over. Again, be careful not to get anything into that oiler. I recommend using safety glasses. Nobody wants any oily sawdust in their eyes. Then I'll give it a spray with some parts cleaner. And wipe it down with a rag. I want to make sure I get everything out in behind the clutch and the dry sprocket. I also want to inspect the dry sprocket for wear. If it's worn, I'll replace it. The clutch is reverse threaded on there. There's a spot on the side where you can place a flathead and pop it off with a hammer. I guess you can get a tool or use a piece of rope to stick down the spark plug hole to jam the piston to keep the crank from spinning. But I find if you hit it just the right way, it usually comes off no problem. But of course, today it's going to take a few tries. I'll clean the dust out of the clutch, bearing, and sprocket with parts cleaner. I shouldn't forget to mention that in the center of the clutch, there's a spot to grease it with one of those grease pens, which today I don't have. The dry sprocket looks pretty good. I'll just give it one more blow and a wipe down and put it back together. Then I'll clean the side case. Again, I'll use the toothbrush to get most of the gunk out. Then I'll give it a blow. Again, don't forget the safety glasses. And a spray with some parts cleaner. Normally I wear latex gloves for this. I hate getting this shit on my hands. Some cleaners makes the skin on my palms peel and it's pretty gross. No woman in her right mind wants a man groping her with hands like that. At least not my wife. Just beautiful. You can tell I'm quite pleased with myself. And then I'll wipe down the bar and chain. Make sure the sprocket is spinning nice. The browned edges are from running the bar too hot, usually because of a dull chain or lack of bar oil. Now I'm checking the bar for burrs. As the bar wears, they get a lip on the edge of the bar. You can feel it if you run your thumbnail over the edge. It might not seem like much, but a burred bar can prevent the saw from cutting well. This one's fine, but if it were burred, I'd rub it off with a flat file. Now I'm going to scrape the gunk out of the bar rails. Notice that I'm scraping it away from the sprocket. The air tool works pretty good for getting the small bits out of there. So there's these tiny holes on either end of the bar that line up with your oiler on the saw. The oil flows into the holes and along the rails to lubricate the chain. You want to make sure those holes are free of gunk as well. Now I'm just using the parts cleaner and spinning the sprocket, trying to get the rest of the small bits and crap out of there. I'll do that until I can feel the sprocket turning smoothly. Now I'm going to put the bar and chain back on. First the bar. Then I put the chain over the drive sprocket. I'll work it back and forth a couple times like that just to make sure that the drivers are in the sprocket. Then I'll work it over the rails, up around the nose, and back down, keeping tension on it. Make sure that it doesn't fall out of that dry sprocket. You see, I keep checking it. It's a pain in the ass to get it all together and realize that the chain fell off the sprocket again. Then I usually have to back off the tensioner to get it to line in the hole in the bar. And then I'll tighten up the nuts finger tight. And then I'll tighten the chain. And then tighten the nuts the rest of the way once I'm done that. Some say you want to be able to pull 3 drivers out of the bar. But basically, you don't want so much tension on the chain that it stops spinning immediately once you let off the throttle. And you don't want it so loose that the drivers are hanging down out of the bar. Next, I'm going to take off the top cover. You can just pop these 3 tabs off with a flathead. I'm going to clean the inside of the cover and get all that dirt that's caked on the inside there. Then I'm going to clean out around the cylinder head and the air filter. Those fins on the cylinder head are for distributing heat to cool the cylinder. And I was once told if you leave them full of wood chips and caked on pitch, they won't distribute the heat as well. So I like to keep them nice and clean. Now I'm going to pull off the air filter. But before I do that, I'm going to put the choke on, and that'll close the valve in the carburetor. That way no dirt will get down there while I'm cleaning. It's also not a bad idea to put a clean rag over the hole. Now I'm going to take the blow tool and gently blow the air filter from the inside. The screens don't seem as delicate as they once were on older filters, but I'm still careful not to blow a hole through the screen. I'm also trying my best to avoid blowing dirt into the screen. That's why I'm blowing from the inside. And I don't want to scrub it with a toothbrush for the same reason, because it might end up pushing dirt into the screen rather than off of it. That looks better. It's a good blow job. Now I'll put that back on and have a look at the spark plug. It looks a little dark. A dark color could mean a couple of things, like the fuel and air mixture being too rich. Maybe your carburetor isn't set right. This saw has an auto-tuned carburetor and it runs like a top, so I can rule that out. I also noticed that the spark plug's a little oily, and that would indicate that there's too much oil mixed in with the gas. It's a good idea to check your spark plug from time to time. If your spark plug is really light or white in color, that could mean that the engine is running too hot, usually from lean air and fuel mixture, and that's really not good. Now I'm just going to work the throttle and the choke lever just to make sure all the linkage is working right. So since my spark plug is looking a bit oily, I'm curious to see how the spark arrestor is looking. If you're mixing too much oil in your gas, or if you're running your saw at low RPM all the time, these screens can get plugged up with carbon and cause your saw to lose power. So it might be necessary to clean it out. It's a bit of a struggle. It looks good to me. A little black in the center, but the screen isn't plugged. I'm going to give it a good cleaning anyway, since I have it out. Now remember, the spark arrestor is a safety feature, and it's important that we put it back in there and that it's working, because it prevents sparks from spitting out of the muffler and potentially causing forest fires. Now I'm going to take off the pull cord case and clean in around the starter. It's just 4 torque sticks holding that on. I've used almost a full can of brake cleaner on this chainsaw. I should probably clean it more often. I wouldn't do this deep of a cleaning every day, not all at once. It'd be impossible to do out in the field anyway, what with no air compressor. But I would give the bar and side case a good cleaning every time I take it off, check the air filter regularly, keep the chain sharp and tight at all times. And if you have access to a shop like I do, bring it in once in a while for a good cleaning. If this is the tool you make your living with, then it only makes sense to take care of it.